All right, we'll call this meeting to order. This is the Mayoral Ad Hoc Committee meeting on equity and diversity. And I guess the appropriate place to start is on the agenda with introductions. And I guess I can go to everybody on this grid is all over the place, I'm sure, for each other. So I'm gonna start with Andrew, who is to my left. And Andrew, if you could send it on down to the next person, to your left or right, and we can pass it along that way. And so start with Andrew.
All right. I'm not sure exactly what you want me to go as far as background or introduction.
That's a good question. Well, I guess for the sake of time, you're the thing, who you are, who you're representing. Start there. I can start myself. How about that? I'm Ayesha Hall. I am the chair of this committee. I am a Lewiston resident, and I also work with the school department as the social emotional learning and equity resource coordinator. Very long title, but very important title. And I have been in the city for almost 3 years now, and I am a parent as well to some Lewiston School District students and a YWCA preschooler. And I'm also, my partner Malik Hall works at Bates as the head football coach. And he also is here with me, and he has just gotten here 3 years in. So I guess that's my background. I'm happy to be here and happy to be a part of the committee and to get to work. So Andrew, who are you, sir?
My name is Andy DeRamo. I'm a resident of Lewiston. I'm a retired resident of Lewiston, but I was the former deputy chief of the Lewiston Police Department. And then I worked at the Lewiston Auburn 911 as the director. And then I taught school at Lewiston High School at LRTC in the law enforcement program. I think my role here, which is probably helpful, is that I was also an assessor for Cayer. And Cayer is the Commission for Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, and which Lewiston is. Lewiston PD is a accredited agency since 1995, and I was there when it started. And like I said, I worked for them for 17 years, going across the country to Lewiston police departments and 911 centers across the country, reviewing policies and procedures. To my left is Tonya Bailey.
Mute myself. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Ayesha. My name is Tonya Bailey Curry. I don't know why Tonya Bailey just comes up, but that's fine. I am a resident of Lewiston. I'm a lifelong resident of Androscoggin County, so went back and forth across the bridge a couple times. I have adult children and small children and grandchildren. So I have an adult son who teaches at Lewiston High School, who coaches at Lewiston High School and was recently hired as a 6th grade teacher at Connors Elementary. I have 2 children that attend Farwell and multiple grandchildren in the Lewiston public school system as well. Professionally, I work at Bates College. I'm a mental health clinician, so I work with traditional age college students who, some for the first time, are coming to what they have determined as a predominantly white state and have faced several challenges in what it means to be a student of color in a state like ours of Maine. So I am happy to serve along with each and every one of you and look forward to our collaboration moving forward. And to the right of me is Denis.
Hi all, I'm Denis D'Auteuil. I'm the city administrator here at the city of Lewiston. I am a Lewiston resident as well. From Lewiston pretty much my whole life, other than some time away overseas in the military. I look forward to working with you all through this process, and I won't take much more than that. And to my left and right. So I'm going to go, I guess, over on the next row over. I'll Dale Dowdy. You're muted, Dale.
Gotta unmute yourself, Dale.
Yeah, I'm Dale Dowdy. I'm the Deputy City Administrator. I'm not a Lewiston resident. I'm a resident of Pittston, but seem to spend quite a bit of my time here in Lewiston, probably more time than in Pittston recently, which is good. Really excited about this committee. I think it's of great value to the city. Oh, and to my right is Dane Morgan.
Hey guys, my name's Dane Morgan, Lewiston citizen. Love being here. Been here for 10 years. I chose to be here, and I expect to be here for a lot longer than the next 10. A realtor here. I work for Realty One Group as well. Navy vet, a bunch of other things. I've done a lot with the city and a lot with the kids that are here, and I appreciate being able to work alongside you all, and look forward to what we can create and what we can do here. So, actually, I have both Andrew and Tonya next to me. I'll go to the next row. Marcela.
Hi everyone, I'm Marcela Peres. I am the director of the Lewiston Library, so I'm here as a city department director. I am a resident of Lewiston. I have been with the library for 8 years, the director for 3, and I am the mother of a 1-year-old, so not quite school age yet. Happy to be here. Let's see, and to my right is Laura.
Hey everyone, happy to be here. My name is Laura Ligori. I'm the executive director of MindBridge. MindBridge is a nonprofit organization. We use psych and neuroscience to support human rights. So I'm a cognitive scientist by trade, and I've gotten the honor of working with a whole bunch of different governments and nonprofit organizations all over the world on their anti-racism and equity work. I'm also helping to lead the city spirit process in Lewiston. And I will send it to Mark.
Thank you, Laura. My name is Mark Cayer. I'm currently the mayor of Lewiston, and so I have a couple of hobbies. One of them is flower gardening, believe it or not, and then public service. And I've been an elected official probably for like 25 years at the local level and for the past decade here in Lewiston. And times have changed from when I first started. There's no doubt about that. But my time in Lewiston has been very rewarding. And although this has been a challenging year, I do believe in the end, this is probably going to be the most rewarding year that I've ever served, because I see great things happening and big changes happening that I think will impact a lot of people's lives if we keep our eyes on an end goal. And I'm really happy to be serving on this committee with each and every one of you. So thank you very much. And I'll pass it to Stephanie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ayesha. My name is Stephanie Gelinas. I'm here representing Lewiston City Council. I'm representing Ward 7. And I'm just so happy to be a part of this group. A little bit about me: when I'm not in the role of city councilor, I am running an agency that I founded about 25 years ago called Sandcastle Clinical and Educational Services. It's a program in Lewiston, River Valley. We work with a pediatric population, birth through age 18. I love my work. I love what I do. I have 6 beautiful children, 10 beautiful grandchildren. 4 of my 6 kids have gone through the Lewiston Public Schools. So I've lived here my entire life, born and raised here, went away to school, got my degrees, but came right back because this is where I wanted to be, is in the great city of Lewiston. So it's an honor to be a part of this group. My bad. Marcela went. Noelle, Chaddock, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ayesha and Mayor Cayer. I'm Noelle Chaddock. I am new to Lewiston. I'm going into my 2nd year at Bates College, where I am the Vice President of Equity and Inclusion. My doctorate is in philosophy. I study critical race. So I spend all of my time in this body and in that thought space, and supporting faculty, staff, students, and now hopefully community members in this work, and building the relationships and frameworks that we need to move forward as a city and as a nation. I also am the diversity trainer for the Binghamton Police Department. I've worked with the City of Cortland Police Departments and a multiplicity of campus safety and police departments. It's just a pleasure to be here. It's nice to start to become part of Lewiston in a real way. Oh, Elgin?
So my name's Elgin Physic. I've been in law enforcement since 2006. I'm basically here kind of representing myself as a civilian. Just recently, as of 1 o'clock this afternoon, got elected, not elected, but sworn in as a school board member. I've been working with our youth since 2011, a lot to do with sports, do with mentoring. So I've been in this committee since 2004 and not going anywhere anytime soon. And thanks for everyone for being here. And let's go to Sophia.
Thanks, Elgin. Good evening, everyone. Sophia Cleed here, the council representative. Been in Lewiston basically my whole life. I'm not that old. Yeah, and I'm just really excited to be here. And I think this committee has a lot of potential, and I can't wait to get to work. Okay, let's see who. I'll do Brian O'Malley.
Thank you, Sophia. My name is Brian O'Malley. I am a Lewiston resident, but I'm here in my role as the chief of police. And at the end of this year, I would have been here in the police department 31 years. I'll pass it off to James. I don't think you've gone yet.
No, I have not. Good evening. I'm honored to be here. I'm James Ford. I'm a Brunswick resident. I've been an employee of the Lewiston Public Schools since April 2018. I spent 2.5 years as the restorative practice coordinator at the high school. And July 1, I started a new role as family and community support coordinator for the district. And so I'm very much looking forward to growing that role here in Lewiston. And I'll send it to Luke.
Thanks, James. Hi, everybody. I'm Luke Jensen. I'm a city councilor in Lewiston for Ward 5. So half the ward is the Tree Street neighborhood, and the other half is the most of the Farwell School neighborhood. That gives you any picture. I'm serving the school committee for 3 years before doing this. For my day job, I work as an ed tech over at Sherwood Heights in Auburn, although I'm applying for teaching spots this fall, so fingers crossed. Yeah, and I'm glad to be here with everybody too. Great group of minds here. My style of government is I like the nerdy policy stuff, the nitty gritty behind the scenes work. So I think that's where I shine the best. So glad to be a part of a great group and looking forward to starting. And at that, I will pass it to Hawa.
Am I the last one? Hi, everyone. This is Hawa from Hawa Abdil. Gosh, I've been in Lewiston 15 years. I can say I'm a Mainer now. So yeah, I grew up in Lewiston, went to Lewiston High School, and now I'm representing the Lewiston Public Schools, and been with the Lewiston Public Schools 4 years now. And yeah, so it's this is a town that I called home. And yeah, I do see myself staying here, and that's why I don't want to go to big cities, because I can't do big traffic. I can travel and come back at the end of the day. So yeah, so here I am.
Is that everyone?
I think one more left. City of Lewiston. I don't know who that is.
That is our IT guy behind the scenes, so we can just act like he's not there. He likes
Okay, I think I'm the last one, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I too am excited to be here with all of you, and I keep just every introduction, my smile kept getting bigger. I had to pull it down because I'm really excited about what we're going to do. So just keeping along with our agenda, I want to pass it on to my guy, Denis. He'll open us up some explanation about policy review and recommendation process.
Yeah, so we'll start with the committee guidelines. You all received these in the email packet when we sent them out originally. What these are, I hope everyone had a chance to just review them. They're pretty basic, standard guidelines that we put out to our committees, especially brand new committees. Where we've started to do this practice a little bit, and it just helps again provide some structure how we're going to handle business and conduct ourselves throughout through the process. I think at this point, what we'd like to see is the committee take the action of adopting these as their committee guidelines. But what I'd recommend is if there's any questions needing clarification, or potentially if someone has suggestions on changes, I would open it to the committee to provide those at this point before you make the recommendations. And Ayesha, I would just say if for the committee, if there's some uncomfortableness with the process of how to make a motion and get this on the table, you do have a mayor and 3 counselors
Yes.
on the committee, very experienced in how to do this for you. So I'm sure once the dialogue happens at that point, you could just ask for a motion to adopt them once the committee has a chance to open the discussion if there is any.
So this would be that time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be that time. If there's any questions, I can answer any questions. We can do any, if we need to do some wordsmithing, if that is a need or questions or clarification.
And just to be clear, right now we're talking about the guidelines themselves, yeah, because that would be skipping over. So does anyone have any questions? Did you get a chance to look it over before we? So Mayor, what am I supposed to say now here? Am I supposed to move?
So I think probably would be important if we went through A through F, and then maybe have, so the A through F was produced through the ad hoc committee, which was approved by the city council. So we do have to kind of stick to these.
Mayor, can I just point of clarification, just real quick? So we're on item 3, which is the committee guidelines, which is a separate. Item 4 is what you're referring to there. So the committee should probably adopt the guidelines.
Very good.
I think that's, yeah. So.
Okay, thank you. So Ayesha, it's really simple. Then I thought that kind of tied into 4, but Denis is correct. So I just think as long as everybody is good with A through C, I think you just need a motion from somebody in a second, and then open it up for any discussion from the committee, and then take a vote.
So
make a motion to A through C.
So that's Elgin making a motion. A second.
Second.
Well, Tonya seconded on the first hand raised as I'm looking around the wave of hands. Any discussion about that? Nope. All in favor of? I think that looks unanimous.
Looks unanimous.
Awesome. So now, going on to B though.
So now item 4.
You're gonna have to vote on that part.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
So going on to item 4, committee duties and goals. So what I'll do here is just, again, in the email, you received the entire document that formed the committee. And really what you're seeing here on the agenda is just the goals and charges, more or less, of the committee and how we see this, the areas of focus, I guess, that the committee be working on. And what we wanted to do here was explain the process that we see, how we break this down. As you can imagine, the policies and procedures behind each of these items, A through F, or A through D, I should say, in particular, there is a tremendous amount of policies, procedures, documentation that you're going to be working through. We're not going to get into that detail tonight. So there's a lot of work that needs to be taken down. And the way that we recommend the process here is that each meeting is almost, each of the bullets, A through, again, D, would almost be a meeting in itself. So what we look at is August 5th is your next meeting scheduled, and you will have a presentation from the police chief that highlights the areas of the policies and procedures around use of force and restraint and the interactions with the public, and you will be, as a committee, you'll receive a very high level overview of these policies and procedures, okay, the presentation, okay. The packet that you get ahead of time, just like this meeting, will contain all of those policies and procedures ahead of time. You're gonna have an opportunity to review this information all before we get into that meeting on August 5th. The chief will spend the time for the first part of the meeting basically through a PowerPoint presentation and really walking you through all of those and maybe providing some additional context, maybe some scenarios, and just give you some additional opportunity to hopefully understand them even better, or at least understand how they all kind of interact and how they're applied. And then the second part of the meeting will be the opportunity for the committee to really ask, Q&A with the chief and staff in general. We'll be able to answer any questions, clarifications. If you need additional information, then we can certainly follow up at the next meeting after that. But it will be an opportunity for that interaction and discuss that. The way we see it from there, the best way to proceed would be then our August. I apologize, looking at the calendar. August 19th meeting, which would be 2 weeks later than that. That's where we would expect that the committee could now, focused on item A, develop the recommendations based on the discussion and presentation. I spoke with Ayesha a little bit before just to kind of explain. I want to make sure it's clear with everyone that, if we get through August 5th and the discussion just isn't complete, it doesn't mean that we can't continue that discussion and review at the next meeting. Some items may require you just simply say we need a little bit more time before we're ready to develop those recommendations. That's okay. So none of this timeline is very rigid and strict, but in order to move things forward, we felt, and be as efficient as possible, review, have a presentation, discussion, next meeting, develop the recommendations. Then the first meeting in September, if we stay on that same schedule, you would take up item B, review the process by which citizen complaints against the police officers and other city employees are investigated. So you'll get the presentation on that now. You're going to have all of that sent to you ahead of time. Again, all of the policies and procedures behind the scenes, and you'll get a presentation, likely again, led majority by the police chief. And from the city standpoint, either myself or probably Dale D'Auteuil would present any, that additional information regarding the rest of the city policies. Again, Q&A and following meeting, coming back for recommendations and development of that. I think that process goes through all the way through A through D. And then I think, when you get through E and F, I think, I would see that the committee would start to really dial in those recommendations as a complete package that would be coming forward to the council, maybe any refining that they want to do there. But then you're really charged with the development of the plan for a permanent standing committee and what that work in charge of that committee might look like. And then that recommendation, ultimately, all of these recommendations will ultimately be going to the city council for consideration. A couple of points just before I open it up to any questions around that. It's important, I think, that, and we've really been talking in staff about how we develop a visual for you folks, or some assistance on understanding our policies and our procedures. And each one of our policies, or many of our policies, they have different paths and in terms of changes and how they would be, how the recommendations might be implemented or ultimately dealt with. There's city council policy, there's department policy, there's union contracts involved here. There's a variety of different levels of policy. And then obviously we have federal policy and much, larger laws that, we don't have any control here on the local level. So we're going to do our very best to, as we go through this, we want to be able to, as from staff, as you come up with the recommendations, we're going to be explaining what that process is depending on what the recommendation is. And we'll again continue to try to work a little bit, leading into these meetings and hopefully have something that can maybe give you a visual about what these policies and the structures and the levels of those policies. Some, like I said, are directly at the council level, some are at the department level. But ultimately they are all, I want to be clear that they are all going to go to the city council regardless, and all these recommendations will be going. And as we bring those to the city council, staff will be able to share those impacts or those, how do we actually implement these, these recommendations and what does that look like? But we'll have that as part of our dialogue as well through the process. So I'll stop at that point. I feel like I've given a lot. I want to open it up and answer any questions that people have. Oh, looks like Stephanie.
So just a quick question. Would it be the preference of the committee chair that discussion occur only at the meeting? So for an example, like when I think about the letter A, and I think about, Chief O'Malley giving us information before the meeting, would you prefer that we not ask questions in email, or would you prefer that all of that just happens during the committee meeting? I suspect we're going to be getting information ahead of time before the August 5th, before the August 19th meeting. And so I just wondered what would be the preference of the chair in terms of like discussion that goes on prior to those meetings.
That's an awesome question. And I've thought about that too, in regard to how I would love to keep all discussion right here. But I understand that you may have questions for Dennis, for example, where you would need some clarification on some paperwork and things that we would need. I'm not sure the answer to that question, and I would love to have some discussion and see what you all think, and really hear from Dennis, because I'm thinking, Stephanie, when we're asking those questions, it's going to be a hunt for information. And if we're all having the same questions, I would love for it to be together and in a group so we can think it through really figure out what we want to ask. So yeah, I would love some feedback. What do y'all think?
Do y'all use listservs? I'm thinking about a way for it not to be like 117 reply all emails, but a listserv would allow us to have that conversation in a way that benefits all of our knowledge, but also for those of us who want an abridged once a day version versus folk who want it one email at a time type thing. But maybe that is not something that's available to us, but it was a thought.
So the city does not currently have a system like that or a setup like that, like Google Drive, or we don't have that kind of, we just don't have that set up at this point. What I can just simply say, how we handle that in for a city council, say, for example, when we send out a packet, it is very typical that we might get a question, clarification, hey, can you, answer this or whatnot. What we will typically do, to the point of concern of everyone being involved, when those questions come in, we will reply to the counselor, maybe that's asked the question, with a CC to the entire city council. So they're seeing all of the question and answer back and forth. So, I think that's okay. I think from a staff perspective to get a point of clarification or, a quick question, I am very sensitive to what Noelle is saying as well. I don't know what the volume would be. So, I'm okay with us going through this. And if it becomes a real big volume issue and we're really struggling maybe to keep up with all the questions, we can maybe address it in the committee meeting as a group and talk about how the best way. But I just want, you can certainly still continue the discussion, but from a staff standpoint, I think we're pretty comfortable with that, kind of Q&A and making sure the rest of the committee would be included in the responses.
Sophia? I'm sorry, Sophia has a hand raised, and then Lori.
Thank you. So I think we should name it says I'm muted. Can you
Yeah,
guys hear
we
me?
hear you. We hear you.
I think we should follow the same procedure as the city council, where we receive a packet if a certain council member has a question or more information, and a staff from the city responds to that request, but they hit reply, and so that all the city councilors get that information. But also this committee was created to hear all sides, all perspectives, and therefore I think if we have questions or suggestions, whatever we have, I think it should happen when the meetings happen. I have another question, but I will ask that after this question is all done with. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. Laura?
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so a clarifying question, and then I'll situate why I'm asking. So just to clarify, at each of our meetings, we're going to be given this presentation, and then after the presentation, we're going to discuss the substance of that presentation, and then immediately thereafter compose our recommendations. Is that all going to be happening within the same meeting?
No.
Ideally. Oh,
well,
sorry.
I think you're looking at really presentation, Q&A in one meeting, clarifying, getting that information, really understanding everything. Then the next meeting, really focusing on the development of those recommendations, giving everyone more time with between meetings and such.
Cool. Well, yeah. So then if that's going to be how, and that makes total sense to have the meeting, have the presentation, ask some clarifying questions, then consider it and then come back. And that makes total sense. So if that's the format, then it doesn't seem like we have enough meetings scheduled. If we're only meeting on the first and third Wednesday of every month, and then we're scheduled to submit a recommendation by September 30th, it doesn't seem like we have enough opportunities for all of that.
No, and you are correct. What we've done is just put a schedule together. It's the first and third Wednesday through till we're done, more or less. There is a deadline, as you probably caught in the original charge of creating a committee, of September 30th. Clearly, you're right. There's no way we're going to be able to get that through, and I think we're going to need to just go to the city council and explain there's going to need to be an extension of that time, and I don't expect that that'll be a challenge with anyone to extend that time, because it's just not enough time to get through all of this. So
if I could, Ayesha, just and we all have to just keep remind ourselves that these are public meetings, because we have 3 councilors and a mayor involved. So any discussion by email really needs to be limited, or questions directed to the chair only, but committee members should not be going back and forth by email, and we'll save that, I think, for the public meeting.
Thank you, Mayor.
Laura?
Yeah, and then for those of us, because life, and I imagine that if we are spreading this out, it's probably going to go until, roughly early December, that there's going to be a moment where one of us needs to not be here. Are we going to be able to view the videos of our meetings after the fact for those who aren't able to attend?
Yes, so we're recording these meetings, and they will be posted on our YouTube channel, City of Lewiston YouTube channel. So yes, anyone will be able to review them at any time.
Howard?
So let's just say we're done by December, and the recommendation that we made, who do we hold accountable that those recommendations are already it's going to be implemented?
So that would go, so we'll have a presentation before the city council, and if the city council adopts the recommendations, then I think the city council would take the charge of making sure that happens at that point. So I guess you would hold the city council accountable as a committee.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Sophia?
Thank you, Ayesha. So I have a suggestion. I'm just thinking out loud. Let me go back to the agenda. I apologize. So let's say that we review we get a presentation, we have our questions, and then we make recommendation, however that looks like. After those recommendations, can we go back to the city council for them to adopt these recommendations or present it in front of the city council and then go back and then so on and so forth?
You know, I think what the way we view this, it would not be at each point of recommendations. You would go through the entire process, basically A through F, essentially developing all of the recommendations, as well as, and again, that September 30th deadline of having a permanent standing committee identified obviously needs to be extended, because I don't think you'll obviously have that done. But it would basically be all of it. So you would take A through F, and that would all be going to the council in a full packet of recommendations on all of these things, as well as the standing committee, recommendations.
And it's safe to say that F is where we've safeguarded the work that we're doing, so that if we do need to go further or extend or look, we missed a policy, we would want to put that in F, which is to make sure other recommendations the committee finds appropriate to fulfill its purpose. That kind of is the ... for me. Is that safe to assume?
Yes.
And Sophia's, okay.
And I think as we work through all of this stuff, something may come up, a committee member may say, hey, what about this? Have we considered that? So I think that also allows us that space to add something that we find to be important as a committee.
Okay, because that was going to be my question of what can we, if we're planning, because I can see all of these would have a long, we got a lot of work to do and a lot of work to do in a short time. So I guess my question was about, if we do miss something and we need to come back, like what does that process look like? But I'm assuming that we would think about that down the line after we've gotten through A, B, C, D, E. Does anybody have any other questions? The committee duties and goals discussion, I think that's wrapping up into this, even though I'm moving down the line in the agenda. I want to make sure all the questions get asked about that, because I have some questions about A, but I don't want to take over. So does anyone have any questions? I could start off, but I want to make sure we're flowing. No? Okay, so I'll start. So for A, and this I guess would go to the mayor or even to, we have our chief here. So review the policies and procedures. What do you foresee? What policies and procedures should we be looking at? And I'm asking this, I guess, to our committee and to all that can jump in. What policies and procedures are we looking at?
It might be best, Ayesha, what we've done is when we took that, the first thing staff has done is literally pull every policy and procedure that meets that category or item A. Chief, anything you can elaborate basically on that of just without running through the full list, because I know it's a lengthy list, but kind of give them a better sense of maybe what they're going to see here.
Well, for my reading of A, I was going to go over what we call response to resistance, but what the common language we use of force policies. And in that policy, there are some policies that attach to it in terms of some other equipment and things that we use. So I was going to go over that. And that's going to be a fairly long presentation on our response to resistance, how we document use of force, the policy that goes with that, the reviews that we do of that. So that was my plan for A. And what I was going to do is get that all together so you folks would have a chance to read all that. And also with that, there's also state law that goes with it. So I will give you the sections of the state law, because a lot of our policy is based off of state law. So there'll be about 3 or 4 state laws that you'll have to go in terms of when an officer is justified in using deadly force and non-deadly force, and then policies and procedures around that. So that's a fairly long presentation, a lot of stuff to read over. But that was what I was going to do for A, is focus on that policy right there.
Will it just be you speaking? Will you have some of your guys come in, or some of your officers come in to talk about? Is that an appropriate space for that? It's also this question I bring to
I was going to do the policy review myself and go over the laws and how we document and the forms that go with that as well. I was not planning on having anyone else come in and speak.
Laura?
Yeah, sorry, y'all. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking this time.
Please do. That's okay.
Yeah, so I see that we're focusing on use of force and restraint. And I'm wondering, since this is the Committee on Equity and Diversity, and we're looking at policy and policing more broadly, I'm wondering what our interests are in looking at policy and procedures around stop and search, around data on police interactions with specific populations, such as youth or people with disabilities or homeless. And then how about policy and procedures in response to policing and interactions with crime victims? Often comes up within this arena. So I know we've got a lot on our plate, but these are three other sectors that often come into play when we're talking about equity and diversity work within policing. So I just thought I would bring that up and ask about that.
I too am very interested in seeing the data and the ways in which the interactions are spread across different populations and demographics. I think that would be wildly helpful as it informs all of the other pieces that we'll be looking at. Are we going to get kind of a data dump, or will the data come to us as we go through each section?
Okay, so I'm gonna give him a chance to answer from Laura and Noelle, because that was
Okay, so what I was looking at was the policies and procedures. So if there's data, I'm gonna, if you folks can give me a heads up of what you're looking for in terms of, you're looking at arrests, you're looking at summonses, traffic interactions. I mean, some of that stuff I can pull up easily. Some of it's a little more in depth. How far back you want to go, that kind of stuff I'd need to get, and I'd need to get that information. I can't just snap my fingers and get that. There's a little more involved in that, but we do keep track of it. We keep track of use of force by sex and by race, so I can get that information for you if that's what you're interested in. I'm just making some notes there as we're talking.
Is there any way to get?
You want this? I mean, in terms of, is it the first meeting, or do you? I mean, I just kind of, because like I said, there's a lot of information that we're going over here.
the next meeting will be August 5th for that presentation.
Right. So I was planning on doing policy. So if I can get some direction in terms of what actual data you're looking for, you're talking about, I think Laura talked about interaction. Did you say folks with mental health issues and things like that, Laura? I'm not really sure if I can pull that information up. I don't think we track it that way.
Yeah, I think my question was around if there's any sort of policy and procedures or recommendations about interactions with specific populations or quote special populations, youth, homelessness, mental health, non-English speakers. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a different policy review. I thought you were talking about data or raw numbers with that. I can get policies on those as well to review.
Tonya, oh, sorry. Laura, did you want to finish that thought? And then Tonya, you can.
Yeah. So I was wondering, maybe also because Noelle, I was thinking about the data as well. And so maybe we can, I don't want to volunteer you, but I was just going to suggest that maybe we can kind of quickly write up some of these suggestions or thoughts and kind of pop it out to Captain O'Malley as well.
And I don't want to ask for things that the committee is not interested in, or,
I'm very interested.
Same.
So I want to just clarify, Noelle and Laura, is that okay to say that you'll get maybe some direction as to what data we would like to look at?
Yeah, we actually have a meeting tomorrow or Friday, Laura. Maybe we could
Awesome.
a list of questions and
Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be, if you can tell me, give me in writing what data you're looking for, I can get my crime analysis to start pulling those numbers up.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
And I want to take it to Tonya, that her hand raised.
Well, you all have kind of answered in the exchange that you've had with Chief O'Malley. I too am also very interested in the, the mental health piece of this in connection with are we seeing those numbers heavily connect to certain groups of people? And what's the diversion on that? Like, are we getting folks resources that they need as opposed to, arresting folks and having them go to jail? Around crisis intervention training, just really kind of interested in that data too, just so when you are presenting, there's a more broad picture, so I can kind of have the whole picture. And I realize that's a lot to ask, but if Noelle and Laura, when you guys meet, if you could just remember that piece, especially around the, the data or the, how many officers do we have in the Lewiston Police Department that are CIT trained to be able to, kind of approach those situations and have the de-escalation techniques, installed in them when they are, engaging with a person that may be experiencing a mental health crisis, as well as be from a, a different population. So I'd appreciate that as well.
Thank you, Tonya.
Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion around?
So I guess I would just like to add a little bit. One, I think that the information that's been asked for is going to be really appropriate in some of the work that we do. But I think just that alone is probably extended beyond 3 meetings, because I'm sure that'll generate a lot of discussion. So I just, the committee just needs to keep that in mind, that, we should try to stick to some type of timeline, but that shouldn't take away from the important work. But I think we'll end up going back before the council relatively soon to try to extend this date. And as long as the committee's aware, kind of is agreeing to that. And then understanding that the chief and, he's got a couple of folks that will be assisting him, but he may not be able to produce everything within like the next meeting. But as long as we see a steady flow of information, I think, that's going to be best for our committee's work.
And we do have officers CIT trained, Tonya. I think I have over 40, and we're also, we're training our officers in called what's verbal judo. And I was going to go over all that during the training part of it. So I don't think all that's going to be crammed in the first meeting.
Of course.
But I mean, because I was kind of following this guideline, and training was a whole separate block of what we actually do. And I welcome in my office, welcome any more training. And I think Stephanie knows this as well, where we have a project Support You, where we've been working with Tri-County Mental Health, where we have a crisis worker that rides along with one of our officers on the day shift. Unfortunately, with COVID, that hasn't been happening. I did actually have a email conversation with Nate Libby today about trying to push him to get some funds to support that program through Tri-County. I've had conversations with the Commissioner of Public Safety, but that's was like, I think C or something our conversation was going to be on. If I can get some, actual written questions of what you want, I'll work on getting data for, the whole committee, for everybody's input.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Because I think.
Oh, sorry, Ayesha.
Go ahead, Hawa.
I really appreciate everybody asking for data, because that's very important. And I've noticed that, as Tonya was pointing out, someone who's been repeatedly getting arrested because of alcohol issues, instead of, sending that person to get services or at least, doing the attempt of the officer doing, like saying, hey, this is a paper for you if you want to go to Tri-County, or giving the information. So it's very important that to know our officers are actually looking into, the higher needs, who needs mental counseling, are they doing following up, not just arresting them and keeping them in jail for a couple of hours for them to be sober up. So I appreciate that if you get that asked for us, Chief O'Malley.
Sophia.
Thank you, Ayesha. So my question, just like reading A through D, it says like municipal employees, including like police officers, but it doesn't say anything regarding school. Is school employees or just a school environment at all under the ad hoc committee on equity and diversity? That's my first question, and then.
So I'll just jump in and respond to that. No, the school department employees are not under the purview of the city council, or so therefore wouldn't be under this committee. So no, we wouldn't be. You'll see the municipal side, the city side, and that apply to those areas, and obviously the police department in particular.
Thank you, Dennis. My next question then is, so far we've talked about, the police department, and of course, I think B and C also mentions municipal employees. Should we, and it's just a suggestion, something I'm just thinking about, should we just then, since we have such a short time to do so much work, should we just focus on police, or should we continue, to include municipal employees, city employees, and will that continue to extend our work? It's just a suggestion, a discussion for everyone.
Thank you, Sophia. I'll say that it may help knowing that, like I said, knowing that F exists and that one of our recommendations can be to continue what work we need to do. It gives me, it gives me some confidence that we'll get stuff covered. So I'm okay with that suggestion.
And truly, when this ad hoc committee was created, the attention was all on police, but I just felt it was really important that we go broader than that with training and municipal employees and following up on concerns from citizens. So again, we're going to be able to extend the timeline on this committee, and it'll be well worth that, I believe, in the end.
I would agree with Mayor Cayer. I think that, if we, first of all, because of a lot of the conversation was around law enforcement are also human beings, and we have human beings that work for us, for this, municipal employees. And if we don't look at the whole, and then we only concentrate on one area, we still have pockets where we have difficulty. So I think really looking at the whole city and all of those employees, I think makes the most sense, so everybody can get the same type of training or have the opportunity to have the same type of training and be on the same page. So I would agree with you, Mayor Cayer.
James?
You're muted.
Thank you, Ayesha. To help me put this in context, can you tell me the size of the police department and the breakout in terms of age range or diversity?
I can't hear you, James. Did you say the size of the police department and what?
Yeah, so the size and the diversity within the police department and ages and race. And
I can give you demographics. I don't know the ages off the top of my head, but we do. We do have, right now we have 77 officers. We have one black male, 2 Hispanics, and then one other. I think you all know Joe Philippon. And then we have several, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I can get all that for you in terms of females. I have one female supervisor. She was actually promoted by me, the first one in the history of the police department, Sergeant Carly Conley. So I can get you that breakdown, the demographics, James.
Thank you.
I don't know, but I don't think I can get you the ages, though. I don't know if I can put that out there, but.
Thank you, James. Thanks, Chief O'Malley. Anybody else? Oh, Sophia.
Thank you, Ayesha. Another thing I was just thinking was, like, what percentage of our officers do reside in Lewiston? Is that data that you can get us, Chief?
Yes, I can get that.
Thank you.
Keeping in mind, we can't require officers that, you know, we can't just hire people who live in Lewiston. So folks know.
No. I'm just making a suggestion of like who lives. I'm not saying like exactly like we need to hire people from Lewiston, but I want to know how many of our 77 officers do reside in Lewiston. It can be like 10% or, you know, whatever, like just a general number. Yeah.
Chief, will we have an opportunity, or will you bring with you at some point what our officers are thinking about, what they think the gaps and strengths in the force are, what they're looking for as far as support from the city, whether that's training or other resources, that kind of thing. Will we get an opportunity to hear the officer's voice in this process?
Well, I know that they've already submitted to the city council and to the mayor. Mayor, was it 2-3 weeks ago, what they were looking for in terms of more training, in terms of body cameras. So I mean, if that's what you want, I could see. I can't make them come here. I guess we could have that conversation, Dennis, and see what you'd like to do with that.
I want to just piggyback off of Noelle. I asked the question earlier. I started off with that question just because I think that if we're talking about having the opportunity to hear you all, hear everyone, they should get a voice. Whether it is, if y'all gathered some sort of information from them, I hope that that'll be a part of our packet, because I would like to know what that experience is like. And I mean, just speaking in my little administrative position in my profession, I know that there's a disconnect sometimes when, you know, boots on the ground versus I'm up here doing all that work. I want to make sure they're getting their voices in there in the conversation too, some kind of way.
Well,
so,
if the
they don't have to come if they don't feel comfortable.
Like, I could speak to the union president and see if he would like to address this. I know he wanted to have a seat on this committee, so maybe he'd want to come and speak to the committee. I'm not sure if you'd want to prepare questions for him ahead of time or just have the union president come and speak. I guess that would be up to you folks what you want to do, and I could invite him to a meeting.
And to be clear about what my question, Chief, is that the project is to build a community of human beings who interact with each other. I don't want to lose the humanity of the folks who are doing the job. And so that is the request. It's not to put them on, you know, some sort of, you know, interrogation. I'm truly interested in the human beings who do this job every day, as well as the human beings who interact and experience our police officers. So if that could be the request, I would greatly appreciate that being conveyed as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Noelle. Elgin?
This is not for the chief, but this is just kind of just thrown out there. It might be helpful just to know and just even educate the public what police work is like. I know there's been situations where people have asked me questions and they felt like they were slighted by the police department, and I have to tell them, well, that's just kind of police work. So it might be one of those blocks of things where you can just, you know, you can go on, okay, this is, you know, really educate people what police officers really do and some of the things that what police work really is. Because I think a lot of people, they see something and they might feel that they were slighted. So I think if we're able to actually just educate the public on kind of really what police work is, that might be really beneficial to all. I don't don't know how you go on about that, but I think it will really be beneficial for not only the committee, but just for the public in general.
Hey, Andy, go ahead. Thank you, Elgin.
I think he makes a great point, especially when you talk about the use of force policy, which is the first one that comes up. If you're going to review and set guidelines for on the policies for their jobs, you should have an understanding of what they go through. We have the capability over at the high school to do shoot, don't shoot scenarios. And that would probably give you a good concept of what those things go through. It's difficult to kind of, I don't want to use the word criticize, but to critique a person's job without knowing what they do.
Thank you, Andy. So is it appropriate to say maybe making that part of D or C or D, just bringing maybe some sort of representation where it says review the type and nature of training provided, maybe bring in some representation or some voice in that space. Does that fit what we're looking for, committee? Andy?
I think if you're going to review the use of force policy, you're going to have difficulty without some background. If I remember right, it's like 28 pages long. And then there's other side issues with that. So to have an understanding of that, you're going to have to understand some of the concepts that they go through.
Would you say that there's more than enough people that's on this committee that's been through some of this use of force training, have been in situations that they could speak to as well while we're a part of this? I guess that's the question I'm asking. I feel like there's enough people that are here that can speak to it across the committee as well in that moment. I think that's, I don't know if that's a bigger issue for us to be able to go through. For example, like Elgin's obviously a state trooper. I've been in the military. I was a master at arms. There's countless cops that are here as well. I'm pretty sure that we could speak to the use of force continuum, to the process and the protocols that go on with that. Just offering a suggestion there, Andy, sir.
Thank you.
But, I think Dane's right. I think there's probably, I was a police officer 20 years. We have another retired police officer here and 2 active police officers here, and then Dane had military. I don't think that should take away from bringing in, hearing from police officers directly. So I think that's important at some point in this committee work, either through the union representative like the chief suggested. But I agree. I mean, there's plenty of people here that have been involved in life or death situations as a law enforcement officer. I was involved in a police shooting in my career. Chief O'Malley's been around long enough. I'm sure he's been in through some scary situations. But it's also, and I guess I'm okay with saying even as a former police officer, some of this is common sense. What happened out west. We all know right and wrong, even as police officers. So we want to understand what they go through on working on a night shift in downtown Lewiston at 3 in the morning. But there's also just right and wrong. And I think we have great police officers here. Some of it's common sense for our committee to recognize that, I think, as well.
Thank you. Sophia?
Thank you, Ayesha. So if we're having the conversation of hearing from officers, maybe they can, submit comments in an anonymous way. Just, their experience working in Lewiston or something, like whatever they feel comfortable sharing with us, because I would like, because I know how challenging, not from a firsthand, but I definitely recognize how challenging it is to be an officer in the city or in any other city. So like I would definitely like to hear from, you know, officers, but also I'm wondering, we do have citizen ride-alongs, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. Maybe this committee can do that, right? Like, you know, do ride-alongs. It's going to be a lot of people, and see, you know, day-to-day activity. So that was one of my suggestions. I don't know if that's possible, but yeah.
Chief could bring out the paddy wagon and we all go together.
James?
Thank you, Ayesha. Are there going to be training videos we have to watch as well?
I have no training videos to show you, James. That wasn't what I was going to do. If that's something that the committee wants, I guess I'd need to know what videos you're talking about, what you want to see. Not all of our training is done on videos. Some of it's in person, you know, hands-on type training. So I guess if I could get some sort of idea what you're looking at. I'm going to try to give an overview of the training that we do. We do a mixed bag of training. It could be, and of course I'm taking away from some of my presentation, so maybe one of these days won't be as long, that class, that meeting. We do online with a company called JPMA, where it's basically an interactive PowerPoint where they answer questions and they do a test afterwards. We have articles online. We used to hand them out, but now of course everything's online. We will sometimes have people come in and do presentations, and it's recorded, and then we'll play that video recording for other shifts, because, you know, I have officers that work 24 hours a day. And then of course there's a hands-on training where we have an instructor. They go to instructor comes here, or we have my in-house instructors conduct training. So there's a myriad of types of training that we give the officers, or I should say styles of training that we get. So it's not like we just pop a DVD into a computer and play a video. So I'm not sure what you'd be looking for. I think I'd need a little more clarification on that, James.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that if you're looking for biases, sometimes when things are presented creates a bias.
So I see hands. And I was looking down. So I want to do Tonya, and then Sophia, and Laura, in that order. If I missed anybody, I apologize.
Thank you, Ayesha. One thing, and I'm going to put my social worker hat on here for a minute, and anybody that is in social work will know that where this is comments coming from. But I want to recognize, as we go through this work with one another, that some of us don't know each other, but we all, I hope, can walk through this process and recognize that it's a journey, and also recognize that we are in a safe place, but also we need to expand that and make sure that this is a brave enough space where folks can, you know, openly talk about, you know, I'm not comfortable with this, this, and this. These are the reasons why, and do so with respect for one another. And I'm not saying this because I've seen that we have a lack of that. I'm saying this because the work that we are charged with is so important. So, you know, I'm recognizing as a person, when I'm asking a question of Chief O'Malley, he has a knowledge that I don't have. So I also have to be comfortable with the answer that he's given me. You know, if I want to challenge that or ask for more clarification, that there does have to come to a point where I recognize as a person too, that he has an expertise that I don't have. And we all across this, you know, board of Hollywood Squares, we all have different expertise that we bring to this table, but we are charged with the same thing. So I'm hoping that we all think about that as we interact with one another and as we move forward with this charge. So no question, just a comment.
Thank you, Tonya.
Thank you for that, Tonya.
Sophia.
Thank you, Ayesha. I'm looking at the review the recruiting and hiring practices. Is it possible if we can get, if we do like any active engaging in the community to hire individuals, or just, you know, the kind of programs are already in the communities to build like relationship across the board, but especially with the police department?
I believe the chief will be walking through the entire hiring and recruiting practices for the police department, and then we'll certainly be going through that, you know, on the city side. But I think your question is probably more geared at the police department, but he'll be walking through that. And I know there's some of what you're talking about, and whether or not, I guess that comes down to, I think, the recommendation process, that I think you all will hear what the current practices are, the procedures are. And I think if you see gaps or areas that maybe those what you're referring to, Councilor Cleed, you know, need to be improved on or enhanced, I think that would be part of that recommendation process, and areas that we do see as we can improve it.
Laura, right?
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of everybody. Yeah, I just want to kind of bounce off a little bit of what James Ford brought up. It just to kind of put a little tack in this, that this is probably a conversation for later when we're talking about the trainings, but I just kind of want to put a little sticky note on this about trainings, that, you know, sometimes it's really hard to really assess kind of a continuum of trainings, because they're all so different. There's different facilitators and how they did it. Was it online? Was it on person? What were the materials? What were the interactions? What were the exercises? Was it 2 years ago? So sometimes what organizations do is that they implement a series of psychological surveys. This is something that the Center for Policing Equity does on a pretty regular basis, where they go into police departments and they distribute a series of psychological surveys. And this isn't meant to judge, but it's to understand kind of the psychological dynamics that influence decision-making and behavior within policing departments. And so that information exists and those tools exist already, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel there, but it's something that we might want to think about when trying to address things like bias and discrimination and kind of these psychological mechanisms that we're trying to get at when we're thinking about assessing training.
Thank you, Laura. Is there anybody there was someone else? Miss Noelle?
And I read through the documents, and I think one of the questions I had when I read through the documents that's even more intense for me now is I'm interested in what, and I don't need an answer today, I'm interested in what the mayor and chief are thinking goals and outcomes, right? Like what the committee was made, this is happening a lot across the country. But at, you know, at a local level, and the folks who are tasked with supervising this space and the humans involved, like, what are the goals and outcomes? What does success look like to y'all? You know, I'm all for it, and the organization is fantastic of the, you know, the information and the process. But I also am interested in knowing what that looks like in the human beings who live here, and the human beings who are tasked with the jobs of governance and policing. And what, you know, have we had that conversation? I personally would like a committee who's looking both at numbers, policies, procedures, and the human realities and impact. And that impact is global, the folks who live here and the folks who are doing the work. So if there are goals and outcomes, if there was something that you were thinking of, Mayor, when you put this committee together, as far as, you know, what does Lewiston look like if we get this right? I would love to know what some of those thoughts are.
Thank you, Noelle.
So can I just respond a little bit? I think that I'd have to really give that some thought. You know, what I saw was a community that was reacting to some national events, but I also recognize that even though some of the highlights were happening in national events, we're one country, and you know, the inequity and disparity is a national from Maine to California. You know, my main goal was to reassure, if we're doing things good, I want to reassure my community of that. If there are areas that we can do better, I want to identify that and work towards that. And I want to make sure that all voices are being brought into that discussion. So, you know, it was really basic at my level. But I also understand as mayor that a municipality really does have some limits to it, that in Lewiston, we have so many nonprofit partners that do so much work in our community when it comes to substance abuse and mental health issues. And it can't all fall upon the municipality to make things right in a nation that's broken when it comes to mental health and substance abuse treatment and finding the funding to provide all those services. You know, I've said this over and over, it seems, over the past few weeks. Everyone in this meeting today, we all want to make our corner of the world a better place. And that's my goal. I'm not going to be able to, as you know, as mayor, I'm not going to be able to, and I know Dennis as city administrator, we're not going to be able to, you know, fix the mental health issues that are happening right outside all of our doors every night, every day. We're not going to be able to fix all of the issues with opioids. But if we can identify ways to make it a little bit better here in Lewiston and make it sustainable and measurable, then I think we're at least going in the right direction. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of where I was coming from when I started the committee.
Thank you. It's a standing question. At some point, you know, I think checking in with that as we move forward would make a difference. And if folks haven't thought about the answer to that question in their particular space, you know, it's a question that I ask myself in my work. You could get lost really quickly in policy and procedure and meeting outcomes predicated on those things. And I think it's also really important for us to remember that we live here and that we have goals and outcomes for what living here looks and feels like. So thank you for answering that.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to say we should all on this committee, not being all hokey, but we should all on this committee ask ourselves when we come into the space, like what would Lewiston look like if we get this right? I appreciate that comment and that question, Noelle. Sophia?
I promise I'll stop talking soon. So I like, you know, what Noelle said, and I'm wondering, and we really have not, I mean, like we've, you know, been tasked and we have an agenda, you know, things to follow, but each of us have, you know, experience and knowledge, and we are here for a reason. So I am wondering quickly if this quickly, I mean, like literally quickly, we can say, like, you know, what everyone is, you know, hoping to get out of this committee and being in this space, and how they see this committee and this city in terms of, you know, because they're on this committee. If there's not, you know, if people are like, no, that's too much, then completely fine with me. But that was just a suggestion, or maybe like we can write it in via email or something.
I like the idea. I want to make sure that I'm keeping time though, and I don't know how, and I see that we do have a space for public comment. So I love the idea, and I would start, I guess the mayor started, Luke Jensen, since he has his hand raised, I'm hoping that he would start that, or he has a question. But like I said, I like that. I want to make sure we're leaving time for public comment. Dennis, help me out as far as how much time we have set aside for this, for the meeting this evening.
Yeah, you know, we don't necessarily have a hard time. I know we had talked in, you know, some of the, you know, the pre-planning, trying to keep a, you know, a 90-minute limit to the meetings. I think it's difficult for folks to maybe stay focused for longer than that. it's hard. There's a lot of information, but obviously it's not a hard stop at 7. So you still have time to get through the public comment and some of these other things, but trying to keep it as close to that, I think, is just be sensitive to that. My suggestion.
Okay. Well, I guess let's hear from Luke, and then we can maybe start that process. And Sophia, after that, if you could repeat what your request was too. Go ahead, Luke.
Thanks, Ayesha. I wasn't raising my hand for that, but I can certainly respond to that. It was just more of a general kind of boring comment about committees. So my experience on committees, like one of the biggest things that can detract from committee work is going like kind of not necessarily beyond the scope, but trying to do more than you necessarily need to at the time. So there's a lot that we can do as a committee, and we probably will do eventually. I think it's just important that we stick to the scope of the parameters up until we get to, I think it's item number F for what we want to have as like a standing committee further down the road. So everything we initially propose is not going to be like everything I think that needs to happen. And so it's going to be extremely frustrating when we get to that point, but just realizing that we got to follow the process. So I've just been on committees before where they've tried to do more than what was initially wanted to, and then like a year later, there's nothing that got done. Not to be a wet blanket on this, but I guess as far as like why I'm a part of this, I mean, I like the policy stuff. I want to see how I can help out as much as I can. You know, as a white person, my experience is going to be different from a lot of people in the community. But my experience is what it is, and I want to help out as a city councilor.
Awesome. And if you could pass it to the right as we did to make this process a little bit more smooth.
You are on my right.
Oh, awesome. Well, I guess Sophia, I want to believe you asked why for being a part of this committee and taking up this space and doing the work that we're about to do is because my children, because the next generation. I keep asking, what are we teaching our children with our silence, with our me sitting down, me saying I'm too tired, me saying I'm overwhelmed. What am I saying to my children? And so for me, this was one thing I needed to do in my community to make it better. I'm in this space, I have the positionality, and the why not is really important too, because if not, where we're going and where we're headed, whether we think it's happening or not, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And we have to be the ones to stand in that space to make it better. And I really like and enjoy being a part of the change also. And so the person to my right is Tonya Bailey.
Thank you. I would say to keep it brief, which is not something I'm good at, but I'll try. I would say one of the many reasons that I joined this committee, I grew up right here in Lewiston, and it was really challenging. And I have my oldest son who is 30, and I have 2 young ones that are 8 and 7. And I would really like for their experiences, meaning my young ones, to be much different than my experiences and the experiences of my older children. And I think the way to do that is to sit down at the table and have conversations about how do we be better neighbors to each other? How do we have a better connection with law enforcement as Black and brown people? And we can complain about it, but unless we are willing to sit at the table alongside of other people and put our minds together, then we're really just making noise. So I am hoping that we're all on the same page, and it sounds like we are. So again, I'm just excited to do the work. Sorry. Dennis, you're to my right.
Well, I will try to be brief as well. I think we're going to say, sounds like already some similar things, but I certainly, from the city perspective, I'm excited to go through this process because I know that we can do better. I know there's areas for us to improve. And frankly, I just have to, give the shout out to my staff. These are difficult conversations. We all know that these are a difficult process. We understand, what we're up against here. Not one of my staff has balked at this. Not one of my staff. In fact, my staff were asking you to be on here. I could not have all of my staff just join the committee. Otherwise, you talk about Hollywood Squares, it'd be really bad. We wouldn't be able to, but they really wanted to be. They want to be a part of this. They wanted to be engaged. And that excites me because I know that that really comes down to us just getting better as an organization. And if we're better as an organization, then we serve our community better and we make our community better overall. So that's why we're here. I know that's why I'm here. And I know that, you know, my staff, you know, has that same mindset, and it's exciting to go through that with you. I will move it to Andy.
Thanks. I'm vested. I've been here for 40 years. I think I've come here to listen, to learn, and to try to understand. And the other concept is, if we can make these policies better, then I'm all for it. I'm for efficiency and for effectiveness. And I just leave it at that. I think I have some experience to bring about, but you know, hopefully that'll play in. And Laura.
Yeah, you know, why am I in it? You know, I think we all know that saying that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right? And I feel that deeply, right? There's clearly ills here. There's clearly injustice, there's clearly inequity, and there's clearly human beings. I really vibe with what Noelle was saying about our common humanity. And we have a common humanity, and it seems amazing to me that it's so hard for us to reach that it's so hard for us to treat each other that way. So I'm in it to do the hard work and yeah, and try to create as much healing and possibility and community connection as possible. Can you do me a favor? Can you raise your hand if you haven't gone yet? All right, so Marcela's next to me.
Hi, so I mentioned earlier, I'm the director of the library, and so I represent one of the departments that falls under the other municipal staff. And just to echo what Dennis said, these are conversations that we're already having. These are conversations that we want to have more. I was quick to jump in and ask if I could sit here, even if it's as a fly on the wall, because we want to do better. We want to serve the community better. We are one of the very public-facing departments of the city of Lewiston. We work with a very wide and diverse array of Lewiston residents. So we think we have a lot to learn. And I certainly agree that we do. And so I really look forward to what we can do and hearing from you all and really having you examine, you know, what we're doing now, where we could be better, how we can really go to work, do these more substantive changes than just talking, and really move forward that way. So I'm looking forward to it. On a personal note, I am a Latina, I'm an immigrant, and so these are very meaningful to me personally. So I just want to thank you all for your voices here, and I'm really grateful that this is happening. Missed that again. Let me see. And to my right is Mark.
So I think I already shared this, but I'll just one more time. I just want to make our small place in the world better, and whatever it takes, having tough discussions, whatever it takes. I just want to be part of that. So thank you. And let's go with Dane.
And so I've talked about this a bit here, is that I've been here for 10 years. One of the things that I remember during the first protest that was in Portland, I kept saying, in 10 years, I never thought this would take place in a place like Maine. Actually, 10 years ago, I never thought I'd be here this long. So I started there. What kind of drew me to this was the fact that being a vet, being a realtor, being a transplant Mainer, I kind of fit many of those avenues, as Marcela talked about few minutes ago, I fit many of the avenues that we find ourselves at a crossroad. And so it's interesting to be in that space. It's interesting to see my sons grow. My youngest is getting ready to start kindergarten over at Montello. To understand and have been a part of the school system, I've worked with people like Howard in the school system. I kind of have continuously run into these issues left and right, and also my personal life as well. And so this opportunity kind of met me at a very interesting time in my life, and I kind of felt like this was the time to really step forward and be a part of this change, and give of what I ask of all of the kids that I've worked with in the city, all of our youth of color that I've worked with, and really be a role model for them as well as they come up. So. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. I think Stephanie.
Thank you. My why for being here is that I just have great passion for this community. I think these are important conversations that we're going to be having. And I think they're timely. On a personal note, I mentioned that I have 6 children. 3 of them are white. As a white mother, I have 3 white children, and I have 3 children of color. One is African American, one is from India, and one is Haitian. And so as a mom, I've experienced great stories of equity for my children, but I've also experienced and witnessed great, horrible stories of inequity. So I think I bring that to this committee. I can tell you that when my 2 older boys went to school in Lewiston back in the 80s, they were the only children of color in the schools. And so they really believed that everybody of color were adopted. They didn't realize because they were the only children that were brown and black. So I've sort of grown up really, for people that are parents here, that our biggest task, right, is to advocate for our kids. So really intimately involved in their journey here. And I think that's something that I bring to the committee. So this is a topic that is of great importance to me. Thanks. Did you go, Dale? Okay, it's your turn.
So I don't want to repeat everything that certainly Dennis and Marcela said, but it's very much the same. I think it's really bettering the city services. HR is now under me, so that's something that will certainly relevant to this whole conversation beyond the police department, with and beyond it. I think another piece for me, and one of the reasons, like Marcela, I volunteered and really wanted to be part of this, is in part a personal journey to really understand. And listening to Noelle talk about kind of the human condition and how it affects humans, and part of it's a little bit of my self-interest in really wanting to understand better that condition in Maine and that condition in Lewiston. And who's next to me that hasn't gone? James, have you gone?
Well, I'm excited because this isn't a book group. So it's not all about just awareness now. We're going to do something. So that excites me, that there will be a product when we're done. And Sophia.
Thank you, James. Where do I start? I'm kidding. So I'll just say 2 things. One, I want our city, the city employees, and the police department to be reflective of our community in terms of demographic and background. But also, I want same thing for our community to trust, build trust and communication and understanding between our community and our police department in the city. A lot of people don't even go to it's just sometimes it's like foreign to some of our community members that these departments and these agencies is foreign to them. So I want them to build a trust and relationship with these different entities. Let's see. I say Hawa.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Councillor Sophia and Ayesha and Mark Cayer for adding me to this group. This is a wonderful opportunity to get my voice. And as I see everybody here across the table, it's many represented here. This is a great start. This is a great start. We never had this before. So, and again, thank you, Cayer, for setting us this table to finally start something, recommendation, and not just the police level, but, you know, as a Lewiston employee as well. And yeah, so I'm, again, this thing also has, you know, I have a family member who has a mental illness, and you know, every day I'm thinking about like the use of force from the police, and or just in general. You know, I'm always in the community. You know, I'm here for my people, and I'm also here for my Lewiston people as well. And so having this group of people coming together and implementing policy and recommendation, it's a great start. Yeah, but thank you again. I think Noelle.
Thank you, Howell. I just want, you know, I'm new here, and I will say arriving in Lewiston in this body was not a soft landing. I grew up in a place like Lewiston in upstate New York as a transracial adoptee. So not unlike Stephanie's children, I thought that this would feel far more familiar to me than it did. And I will also say that the folks who have made me feel welcome are on this call. Ayesha, Tonya, Safia has had a meal in my home. And, you know, I went to the protest downtown and I met the mayor who came over and talked to me. And that is not something that I've experienced in other places that I've tried to ground into. So I am here because you all made me feel like this was something I wanted to work on. And just this meeting, I think that's a general similar affect that you all have. But so being part of a team that's doing some heavy lifting with intention. And the final thing I'll say is a shout out to Eugene Kavanaugh, who, you know, when he sees me on my porch, he pulls up and gets out of his cruiser and he comes and has a conversation. And he recognized me as a new person in the Lewiston community, and it wasn't an interaction because I was a strange Black person. He was actually curious about who I was and where I was from. So I think there's a lot of potential and possibility here, and I'm thrilled to be able to contribute what I can. I think everybody has gone. Is that true? Oh, I'm
Elgin.
so sorry. Elgin.
I'll keep this quick. I just, you know, just want to improve things in our city. I've been, again, in the city for 16 years. Been doing a lot with the youth, and I'm in a kind of unique position where, again, African American, but also I do this job on a daily basis, and I will never say that because where I've worked is we have our challenges as well. Where I work the rural areas, it's definitely different than working in Lewiston, but I've had my challenges with dealing with racial issues out working rural areas. So I will never say that, you know, I know what it's like to be a Lewiston police officer because it's a different dynamic, but I know what it is like to do this job on a daily basis. So I believe I bring some things unique that, again, I can kind of speak on both sides of the issue and be able to offer my knowledge, education, and experience.
Is that so? I don't want to leave out. So Chief O'Malley, you represent so much in this space, and I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to speak and talk your piece.
Yeah, I welcome the opportunity to have this group look at our policies and our procedures. I know going forward, there's going to be some difficult conversations with the use of force and the demographics. You know, it is a difficult job policing here in Lewiston, and oftentimes it falls to my police officers We have homeless issues, we have mental health issues, we have substance use disorder issues. Many times my offices will transport folks who have mental health issues to hospitals, to St. Mary's over and over again. But then we have business owners who complain when the person is out in front of their building doing inappropriate things that are based more on their mental health issues than actual criminal intent. I think some of you will be surprised as to what I've tried to do in terms of recruitment when I became deputy chief in 2015. That's been my whole mantra, is we need to diversify the police department. I'm also a transplant. I moved up here from Massachusetts. I grew up in a little town called Brockton down in Massachusetts. It was a very diverse community back in the 80s. So it was actually somewhat shocking to me when I moved up to Lewiston, where there were very few minority families or people, people of color in this city. So I look forward to being able to let you know what we're doing, our policies, our procedures. I'm glad that there's a couple of people here from Bates College on this panel. You may be a little surprised with some of the things that I've tried to do for recruitment and have been shot down. And I welcome perhaps now having some of you folks here to help assist me in reaching out to different colleges, and specifically Bates College, to help me with kind of our recruitment. I think that would be great. And I'll come into that when I do my recruitment part. But Ayesha, I have met your husband. When you folks first moved here, he came here. It was the first time I think anybody from the Bates College athletic department has come over here. He did have a law enforcement appreciation. I did actually go to one of the games. I live right around the corner from Bates, and I think that's the first football game that I've been to. Unfortunately, no football this year, I think.
No, sir.
No, I welcome this opportunity, and I understand there's going to be things we can do better. And that goes without saying. No, if anybody says they do everything perfectly, they're not telling you the truth. So hopefully this can be a productive and cordial interaction. I'll try my best not to get defensive if everyone can do the same.
Amen.
As we proceed with this, and I'm thinking we're going to get we'll get good results out of this.
I agree. So I want to go ahead, because it's getting over that 90 minutes he was talking about, to open up to public comment. If it's okay with the rest of the committee to move to that. How does that work? This is also a first, so all of you council folks on here.
There's only 2 people in the public audience, so just I would open it up to public comment. You just did that, and we'll see if any hands raise. And I'm seeing none, so I think it's safe. Oh, we have one. Alec Diamond. So can you see it, Ayesha?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Then go. Yeah, go ahead. And
so this is it's actually Maggie Diamond Stanek. I'm watching. Alex logged in, but we were watching together. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you. I think you can feel that there's tension at times, and people have goals that they're worried will conflict. But it's lovely to see a much more diverse array of faces on the screen than we normally see anywhere in our lives, really, anywhere in my life anyway. And to hear some of the questions that are being asked I'm so excited, and I'm so full of hope. And I think that I really think you'll be able to work together is the feeling that I'm getting. I think Chief O'Malley to say, like, you're gonna try to tame your defensiveness, and everybody tame their defensiveness. I think when we get defensive, we can't accomplish anything. So I really appreciate that you said that, because I think that's they're clearly difficult issues coming down the road. But thank you for taking this on for our town. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. And is that the rest of the public comment? All right. So I want to pass it back over to Dennis so he can continue to tell us about the meeting schedule and our next steps, because you kind of explained it. It was a lot of information at the beginning, but if you could just wrap that up for us and tell us where we're going, that would be awesome.
I am happy to wrap it up and take care of that. Basically, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are looking at a first and third Wednesday of each month is our meeting schedule. fully recognize that we will not be done by September 30th, likely, and we will have to ask for an extension, for that. But we will carry that schedule as long as we can. Posting meetings and agenda packets, those will be posted on our website. We've actually have a space for this committee where agendas, the full agenda packets will be there, all the supporting documentation. And our next meeting is August 5th. We will bring forward item A, which is a review of policies and procedures involving the use of force and restraints presented by Police Chief Brian O'Malley. And then we'll have some Q&A after that. And we're going to start there. And we'll have that out to you. I would imagine sometime, midweek next week, we should have the entire packet out through email to the committee and posted on the website. And that is where we are. And in fact, probably just a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Your next step, Chair.
Sophia?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Oh, meeting adjourned. That was awesome.
Thank you. Good job on
Thank
your
you, everybody.
meeting.
Did I do well?
You did great.
We all did good. That was great.
Thank
See
you,
you
Ayesha.
next time.
Bye, y'all.
Everyone have a good night.